fight that, you're going to lose. You'll fight it 100 times, you'll lose 100 times. And if there's a handful of goods and a handful of people who are allowed into Gaza, all that does is give us something that can be played up in the mainstream media as a sign of Israeli flexibility and forbearance.
Right, exactly.
You give them a win.
Phil Tourney.
Got to think about it. You know, the things that so many of the people, and this is something that I've mentioned verbally and in print and by email to a number of people, the thing that frustrates me about so much of the pro-Palestine or anti-Israel movement, you know, in the West in particular, I think the countries closer to Israel have a better sense of what they are, which is why the Turks probably understand them a lot better. But that so many of the people in the West, you know, think that slogans and street theater are a substitute for strategy. They are not. And it doesn't matter what kind of courage you have and what kind of ethics you have and what kind of determination you have and how good you are if you keep playing to your enemy's strengths and you don't have a sense of strategy.
Right.
Tactics don't match it. Slogans aren't enough. Street theater is worthless.
Phil Tourney, you are still with us, aren't you?
I am certainly here. Yes, I am.
I know. It's. I mean, Alan is just. The guy is just. What can I say? He's incredible. I didn't think that we were going to cover this kind of territory that we covered tonight. But Phil, go ahead. I'm sorry I interrupted you when you were in the middle of launching into something. Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say, Mark, way back when, several years ago, when we were talking to Greta Berlin when she was aboard USS Liberty, and there were just two small boats, and they did a ceremony at sea for the 34 murdered by the government of Israel aboard USS Liberty. And the government of Israel did let those two small boats through, or three of them, maybe there were three. But anyway, they said the best thing they ever did was call that one of the boats Liberty, just for the simple fact they felt that that would be their shield. And it turned out they did reach there safely, unloaded their goods, and made it out of that country in good shape. And as Dr. Sabrosky was saying, that just a token boat once a month would be some kind of a gesture, just something. But to getting back to the Turkey ship, the outrage in the United States of America by our government and the blocking of the UN would have been no different if all 600 souls would have perished that day rather than 9. They would have still blocked the resolution, and the Israelis and the United States government would probably say they got what they deserve. And that's exactly the way I feel. And I think that the Rachel Corrie just being towed in with no resistance is a waste of time, because passive resistance, I guess, is good, but not when you're dealing with a wild dog that when it bites you, you die.
Absolutely. Let me ask you this, Alan. You mentioned before the picture of Putin with Erdogan. What do you see happening here in the next weeks, months, whatever, as far as Turkey? I mean, look, she is tethered to the West to a certain degree. I mean, she's a member of NATO. She hasn't yet been formally admitted into the European Union, but still, if the West sneezes, Turkey, economically speaking, can still catch a cold. Do you think that they're going to try to bring Turkey back into this thing, or are they just going to let her wander into Russia's camp?
I don't have a good answer to that, Mark. I wish I did. So much depends on whether the Israelis show any flexibility in dealing with the Turks at all. If they do, it'll be an excuse for NATO and Brussels to do nothing. I mean, remember, anything that NATO does, while the U.S. doesn't have a veto there, it's still the biggest dog in the fight. And they may not like that, and I'm sure the British and the French and the Germans don't like it, but there's just not a lot they can do about it. This is a reality. The thing that would affect Turkey, I think, more than anything else, and this is just speculation. It is truly speculation because I'm not an expert on Turkish internal politics. Would be if this continued and the West completely refused to back an international investigation other than that of the HRC, which the U.S. can't stop. That's going to proceed anyway. And the next round of aid ships, and if there's a compulsion to send aid ships to there, don't wait until you can assemble 60 boats. Get a couple, 3 there with other flags and get them in there as quickly as possible. But have them prepared to resist. Have them prepared to resist. The Turks have said that they would provide military aid in the future to their flagships. They're not going to do it for others, I'm sure, but to their own. And if they do it and the Israelis stop it, I don't expect it to be stopped peacefully.
Let me ask you a technical question here. If Turkey does sail one of her armed ships out of international waters and into Israel's territorial waters, what's the quote-unquote legal process here? Is Israel free to fire on these ships according to international law?
The waters off Gaza, the waters off the coast of Gaza are not Israel's waters. They're Gazan waters.
Okay.
The waters, depending on how you define national boundaries, they come down to the coast, to the border between Gaza and Israel in the north, and then Egyptian waters pick up when you leave Gaza, in the south. International waters, the Turks can put their ships in international waters legally anywhere they want. And what constitutes the national boundaries, to the very best of my knowledge, with Gaza's land border to some distance from it, and different countries define different lengths of national waters offshore, from 3 miles to 12 miles, and some much more than that. But it's theirs. They would still be within their rights to escort ships ashore.
Okay.
But I'll tell you, I am not positive of that. International law is not something I deal much with because it tends to be hostage to how much force you have behind it.
Right.
It's like domestic law is only as good as the police force. There's a guy named Franklin Lamb who's done a lot of writing on this.
Yep.
And I would suggest that you ask him, either have him on the show or ask him explicitly about it, because I'm 100% positive from things of his I have read that he has forgotten more about international law than I am likely ever to know in my life.
Okay.
He knows it. He knows it. I can guess. I can make an educated guess, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
He knows.
Yeah, I'd love to have him on. We were going to have him on, but the problem is that he's running around in refugee camps with my cousins, and it's hard to get a hold of him on any kind of a reliable phone. So, but no, I agree. He is unbelievably brilliant.
Well, what you might want to do, just as an advice on this, and then if we can, since we're nearing the end of this particular program, just to get 1 or 2 questions to him, and either email the questions to him, and which would probably be easier to do it because his work does come up on the net, or to your cousin, and just ask for just a short answer to 2 or 3 of these very specific questions affecting the law of the sea and the law of borders.
Good idea. Phil Tourney.
Absolutely, I agree with that totally, and it'd be a very positive step in the right direction where we can somehow, all of us together collectively, can do some good here. But I think you're right, Doctor. Get some boats in there and get them in there quickly as possible, rather than trying to get a 60 or 70 boat flotilla in there, because they're all going to end up in the same place. They're going to end up somewhere in Israel, confiscated goods and possible people being killed or hurt again.
Yeah.
But remember what I said, and I mean it. They have to be prepared to resist.
Absolutely, yes.
And that's what blew the first incident up. It's not just that the Israelis used force themselves, is that they used it against people from a lot of different countries, and their governments paid attention to it, and that at least some of the people there resisted.
Do you mean, would you suggest armed resistance?
Sure.
I love it.
And I know exactly what I'm saying.
listen.
I think that there should be no offensive weapons on ships. Period. I don't believe that they're in a position or would be in a